the Microjoy method is so beautiful because it's entirely in your control. What you put on that list of 20 is in your
Yeah.
control. You're entitled to change that list anytime. In any particular moment, you can ask yourself, how do I feel? Right? So,
Yeah.
what, what do I want? How do I feel? What do I want?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is Christine Miles. Welcome to Shine a Light. To start out, I'd like to introduce my guest, Victoria Mensch. She is the founder and CEO of the Silicon Valley Executive Academy, and you bring more than 25 years of executive experience in global tech alongside a PhD in psychology and an MBA from UC Berkeley. So not a slouch here, are you? Quite a background. You're sought after for your leadership strategy as well as being a speaker, and you help organizations build resilient, emotionally intelligent, and future-ready leaders. Boy, that's like a love letter to me. I love hearing that. Your philosophy is anchored in sustainable success, comes from aligning performance with purpose and innovation with humility. And after decades working with founders and senior teams in Silicon Valley, you realized that the most innovative companies weren't just building better technology, they were building better leaders. And you saw that while many organizations tried to copy Silicon Valley's tools and tactics, few understood the deeper truth. Innovation is a mindset, and it all begins with the leadership. So welcome. It's so nice to have you here. As I said, that's quite a resume, and I can't wait to hear you put this in layman's terms for all of us and how you can help us as leaders and communicators in the tech world and beyond be better. So welcome again.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm so excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit about who you are and where you grew up and how you kind of got started in this world and where you began that way. Just take us back to the beginning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, right out of high school, I had this passion of for psychology. So I decided that I wanted to be a psychologist. And my first really education and my foundation is in psychology. I got my PhD in psychology. I got my master's degree. And then I started working with people. And then about
Hmm.
a year in, I said, you know what? I made a mistake. I made a mistake. It's not my
Very
passion.
wise
I
woman.
followed it. Exactly.
Good for
I
you.
fol- I followed it, but it didn't work out. So I need to find a different path. So I switched to a corporate career. I looked around and I uh, kind of cataloged my skills and my talents. And I said, well, it could be really applicable in marketing.
Huh.
And I so happened to be in Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is high tech. So that's how I actually landed in Silicon Valley, in the high tech and the corporate market. And that's where I spent most of my career. So I have over
Hmm.
25 years of experience as high tech in large companies and small companies. I ended up founding my own innovation consultancy. So
Yeah.
that's how it worked. But then throughout those 25 years of my experience, I went through several cycles of those. Like, oh, I followed my passion again and it
Mm.
didn't work out. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm unmotivated. And then after a couple of cycles of those, I said, well, maybe it's not the job.
Well, you're the common denominator, like a
Right,
good
right,
a good
right.
psychologist realizes. Let me look in the mirror. Good for you. Good for
Right,
you.
right, exactly. And so that's how this not bulletproof, burnout
Bulletproof,
proof leadership.
burnout
Yeah.
proof. Same
Burnout proof.
difference, by the way. Freud says
Exactly.
there's no accidents. Victoria, or I should say Dr. Mensch, to be fair, but
Right.
but there are no accidents, bulletproof or burnout proof. Okay, started.
Yes. So in all seriousness, Silicon Valley has a fantastic side to it. And that's
Yeah,
what we're actually bringing to the world, right? So there's
yeah.
a lot that companies and leaders and teams can learn from Silicon Valley and the success of Silicon Valley companies, the innovation and how to compete on innovation mindset, right? But
Yeah.
the other side of it is that how do we sustain? At the end of the day, all this is really happening through people. All this is
Mm-hmm.
being implemented through people, not technologies. And people really need to learn how to sustain this, and not
Mm-hmm.
only to sustain this but also flourish throughout this, right? So we're all
Yeah.
humans and
Yeah.
we want to be happy, we want to flourish and feel fulfilled and purposeful. So that's how the idea of Silicon Valley Executive Academy really came about, that yes, there's this innovation playbook that we can bring to the world, and you can
Yeah.
learn from it and implement, but also how do you actually combine this with a mindset that allow you to be resilient, to sustain the disruption
Yeah.
cycle that's endless,
Yeah.
right? And find at the
Especially
end of
with
the
all the
day,
change, especially with all
yeah.
the change in the it's a couple things strike me just to slow down a little bit here because you said so many important things. One is that we don't exactly go to school to find our passion and purpose, do we? We just kind of hope it finds us. Because
Yeah.
I didn't take a class on find your passion and purpose in school, did you?
No, no, no. Lots of chemistry, physics, and who knows what
Right.
else.
Right, and so depending on who we are, it's becoming more and more of a practical world because things are expensive. College is expensive. I'll speak in the U.S., and so it's very practical that sometimes we have to go. I need to be able to get out and have a career where I can support myself, and so I may not think it's an option to follow my my passion and my purpose seriously. So this is a real dilemma. So between the fact that people aren't coming into the workplace with maybe with a clear perspective and are they even following that passion or purpose,
Mhm,
and because we're
mhm,
not taught it, and then there's these practical things that people can feel very stuck, I think,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
It took a lot of guts for you to say, I don't, this isn't what I want to do. I'm going to just change my mind, right? So good
Right.
for
A lot of
you.
guts or a lot of pain.
Well, isn't that the way
Despair.
change does? Well, that's well said, isn't it? Yeah, wiser than me. So let me go back just again a little further. So why was psychology your passion? Because I have a feeling it plays into a lot of the work you're doing today. So take me back even further. Were you like, I'm in the field of psychology, and I always say the reason I'm in the field is because I come from crazy, right? So
Mhm.
we're all trying to fix the crazy from which we come. And I don't know that that's your experience, but for me, I had, my mother was very broken in many ways from an early childhood loss. And that's part of why I got into the helping profession. It's also why I'm in the field of listening. But for you, do you know where that passion came from?
I think there's several elements. There's definitely an interest in people and human connection that was
Mm,
probably missing, in a sense. But the other side of it is that I actually was born and grew up in Soviet Union, so
mm,
psychology wasn't so prevalent there. And at some point, it was a forbidden science, if you wish. So once
interesting.
once it opened up a little bit, and
Yeah.
then I figured out that psychology was an option, I definitely jumped
Did
into
you grow
this
up in the States
opportunity.
or did you grow up in the?
I moved to the States about 30 years ago. I grew
Okay.
up
So
in, yeah,
yeah.
the
So you're okay.
Philippines.
That
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense. So you weren't at that. You have, I hear a little bit of an accent, but you've after 30 years, it's not as strong, right? So that's helpful. So it's almost like it was the anti-science kind of for you, right? That
Right.
wasn't. Yeah. So was that a rebellion at all, like to study that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My parents are engineers. My siblings are engineers.
You
My
showed them,
grandparents are engineers.
and you worked in an engineering field for most of your career.
Right, exactly. And all my childhood, I remember I kept asking my parents, what is it that you do there, that you go there every day? And they couldn't tell me. So I said, no, I'm not doing that.
Interesting. So, okay, so that's beautiful because isn't that something? Like it's all there, right? And so the other thing I wonder though is, so how much did your psychology serve you, that degree, that doctorate in psychology serve you through your work in marketing? And also you must have had leadership positions and all kinds of positions in this tech world that you were kind of the anti-tech person, right? So how did that help you in ways that other people who didn't have that were floundering or not
Mhm.
floundering? Yeah.
It so happens that I'm being approached by a lot of young people asking advice of what field to choose, what
Mm,
education path to go, what major to choose. And I always say that psychology is a very universal
yeah.
education. So if it
Yeah.
doesn't help you in your profession and at some point you decide that you don't want to be a psychologist, it'll definitely help you
Yeah.
in your life and how you approach people, how you see yourself,
Mhm.
how you look at your talents and gifts, and mostly how you understand the environment around you and
Yeah.
how you can connect and relate with people this way. So
Yeah.
one of the really interesting part of that psychology, because we're talking about how to be happy at the end of the day, right? So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
really talking about this. So now I achieved all this and I still don't feel
Right.
Or
Right.
sometimes like, oh, now I'm strong and powerful. How come? I'm
Yeah.
tired of that and I want to be happy,
Yeah.
right? So psychology really provides science-based,
Yeah.
research-based answer to that, which is very interesting, right? That
Yeah.
there are steps that you can go through. This is the skill, this is the practice you can go through to actually arrive at that state.
So much of the time we think the goal is what's going to make us happy, right? Like if I
Mm-hmm.
just get to this, so I was a willed athlete. I played a lot of sports, and field hockey was my sport of choice. And you know, I really, and I'm not even being modest, but I mean, I was good. Don't get me wrong, I was very good. But I willed myself to a level that probably I didn't really have the athletic prowess naturally to be at. So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be on the U.S. field hockey team so badly until I got to US trials and I went, all they do is play hockey all day. Like what I realized, and I still, I'm not able to play anymore, but if I would if I could, but I realized what I love is learning. I love practice. I love getting to the highest level possible, whatever I do. It was the process of getting there
Mm-hmm.
that I
Mm-hmm.
liked more than the destination. And I realized that pretty young that the goal doesn't always bring you what you think it's going to bring you, right?
Right, exactly. So the athletes like yourself know it better than others, right? So once you achieve that gold medal, then you're actually setting the direction for the next one. So
Yeah,
this particular happiness that we're talking about that associated with the goal is very
yeah,
short-lived. It's snapshot
very.
in time. And then that's how our motivation work. It actually works for purpose so that on purpose, so we continue moving
Yeah,
forward, right? So we continue setting those goals. But the other side of it is that um, as much as the goal is important, as you mentioned, absolutely rightly so, the process is much more important for
yeah,
happiness, right?
yeah,
So, and this
yeah.
is the greatest myth, I think, especially in the Western cultures, is that once I achieve something,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll be happy. So we
Yeah,
continue to postpone that, where the research is very, very clear on that. It's really those everyday moments, that process of getting there that
yeah.
you want to enjoy. So you don't want to postpone it until the achievement comes, because the achievement doesn't really bring a sustainable level of happiness and
Because
satisfaction.
it's a hit, and for the people who have listened to me in my podcast for the short time that I've been doing this, they know that I was in an accident when I was 28, and I was at the height of
Right.
my athletic career, and for 3 years I was still able to play, and then I was taken out. I couldn't pull up my shorts, 6 months after trying out for the U.S. hockey team. So my physical ability was taken away for a very long time. So now I'm back playing tennis. And here's what I know, which is a miracle in so many ways, is that I might look like one of the most athletic people on the court, but I'm by far the best tennis player, which is a very big shift from where I left off. So I am humbled every day, but because I have two perspectives, I love the fact that I can be there because I appreciate just the being on the court every
Right.
day.
Right.
And that, again, what I like is that if I'm happy if I'm getting better, not if I'm the best. So
Uh-huh.
because I
Uh-huh.
appreciate, now I have such a microscope to it that what you just described, the process of it
Uh-huh.
is what is so beautiful of the learning and the getting better. And rather
Right.
than I just got to win the tournament or I just got to get the trophy. But we're so screwed up in life that we don't look at it that way, aren't we?
Right. So, but what the way to look at this, like you can hold two universal truths at the same time.
No, I
That you're
can't.
not
That's cognitive dissonance. I can't do that. Victoria, tell me about cognitive dissonance.
I'm okay with the tennis player I am today, and I want to be better. So
Well,
both of those are right.
let's talk about cognitive dissonance because I can't talk about it as well as you. But seriously, that's so important, and because I want to drill in because this is what you're helping people with. And what do you call this? You have a new name for this. I think it's important.
Right. So there's really a way to get to on the path to that, right? So on the path to enjoying the process, and I call it
Okay.
the Microjoy Method.
The
And
microjoy. I'm going to slow down.
Microjoy, yes.
Microjoy method. This is important because It's the little moments that add up to real happiness.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And the way it goes is that you put together a list of 20 things that you enjoy doing. There is no other reason for those things to exist on that list, only to make you happy. Not because they bring return on investment, not
Okay.
because this is something that you told yourself you should do, not because somebody expected you to do that. The only reason for that activity to be on the list is to make you happy. And you take 3
Happy
of
or
those.
joyful? Happy or joyful?
It's
Is it
actually
the same thing?
happy or joyful. It's really
Okay.
the same thing. For this particular exercise, it's
Okay.
really the same thing. They
Okay.
bring joy to you, or they make you happy in the moment while you're doing this. And then you take 3 of those and you schedule them
Hmm.
on your calendar, 3 of those per day. And at the end of the day, you do a catalog. Oh, this is the 3 things that I did today because they brought me joy.
It's a to-do
So,
list in a way.
right. So it's one way to look at this, that this is another to-do list. It
Well, I
doesn't
like
have
a
to
to-do
be.
list, so that was a positive for me. For some, that may be a negative. So let me clarify
Right.
that.
But one of the pushback that I always get is like, I already have a long to-do list, and now you want me to add to that. And it does not have to be a major thing. It could
Yeah.
be really small things. For
Yeah.
me, it's to get outside in the middle of the day and
Yeah.
just enjoy the sun on my skin. And it takes
Yeah.
2 minutes, but I do it intentionally. So the idea is to intentionally bring the joy back into your life.
Yeah.
And that is relevant for everyone, for each and every leader, no matter how big your responsibilities are or how small your responsibilities are,
Yeah.
whether you have a job or you don't have a job. The
If you're home
idea
with the
here is to
kids, this is important.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Just intentionally bring that joy back and just make sure that this is the way for you to recharge your family, your energy.
Yeah.
There is otherwise there is a constant giving the energy outside and you're
Yeah.
not recharging it. So
Yeah.
that's what you do. You give yourself permission to prioritize yourself, your joy, your happiness.
Yeah. Well, again, so I want to go back to the cognitive dissonance at some points because I think we have to unwind what we've been telling ourselves, right? From what I'm hearing, so we can tell
Mhm.
ourselves. And
Sure.
sometimes that means we have to live in 2 places right, at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're so used to that bigger thing being what's going to make us happier than these micro moments that you're describing. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's, it's funny because I'm highly competitive. I'm going to go back to the athlete thing. And I
Mhm.
probably, if you took me, not probably, let me be more clear. I'll be more honest. When I was in my 20s, if somebody beat me, I didn't get joy from that. Like I
Mhm.
didn't value that experience as much as I do now. As someone who's not as good a tennis player, particularly if I like them, if they hit a
Mhm.
ball past me in such a good way, I have 2 feelings. I'm like, "You just got me," and I don't like that. And then I'm mesmerized at how the experience of that felt to
Right.
get beat like that, and I find
Mhm.
pleasure in that as well.
Right.
And so I'm a lot happier as an athlete in general. Yeah.
Right. And it's also a practice to notice this, right? So this is a cognitive practice, as you said,
Yeah.
to really understand that and appreciate, to actually learn to notice things that you like instead
Yeah.
of things you don't like.
Yeah.
Right. And even my immediate reaction, this is my personal experience. That's how I used to be. That's how I grew up. My immediate reaction was to really find something threatening or negative in the
Yeah.
situation or in person, or an activity. So I actually learned to always find another
Some
side of it,
It
right?
does take
And
practice, though.
make it a practice to notice things that you like instead of things you don't like. And then lo
Yeah.
and behold, you're actually surrounded by things that you like, you enjoy, and you're grateful
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah, we create our own worlds. Again, I had a pretty life-altering situation that taught me
Right.
this pretty fast. So I would trade my experience of going through this kind of a life-altering injury in a heartbeat,
Yeah.
but then I go, would I trade the lessons from this? Because
Mm-hmm.
the appreciation level is, and I know a lot of people relate to this because we all have bad experiences, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you're talking about is so important because it's not something that and maybe being biased on Western culture
Mhm.
because I grew up and I've lived in the States, even though I've traveled,
Mhm.
all my life. But we can really get into that keeping up with the Joneses thing and just thinking that if we just design the right outside life, our inside life will come along with
Right.
it. Yeah, it
Right.
doesn't work that way.
So, absolutely, absolutely. And again, research psychology is very clear on that. There's so many studies that have been done that actually showed this, that people who learn how to appreciate the process, who actually
Mhm.
intentionally do that day by day, week by week, not in a major way. So it's great
Yeah.
to take a cruise once every
Sure.
2 years,
Well, maybe not a
but
cruise, but okay. I get the
right.
example.
But creating those experiences for yourself just for the
Yeah.
sake of creating those experiences and enjoying them, that's what actually going to make a difference. And that side of it, I think, especially in the corporate environment, and when we start talking about the burnout, there are so many external circumstances that
Yeah.
we really don't control, right? So
Yeah.
that's where disruption comes in, and disruption comes in so many different forms. It could be an accident, right? So it could
Mhm.
be a life-altering experience that you really did not have control over, right?
No.
And it could be today you had a bad boss, a company had a bad quarter, I don't know, somebody had a bad day, bad day on the highway and,
Yeah.
cut you off. So there's so many things that could be technological disruptions like
Oh,
artificial
nothing will make me
intelligence,
more
right?
upset than that. Trust me. That computer doesn't work and I'm out of my mind.
Right. So those are external circumstances
Yeah.
that a lot of those we really don't control. But there is always something that we can control. And what we control is our own experience and how we
Mhm.
relate to those circumstances.
Yeah.
So a lot of work that we do is really, bring that power back. And we have much more power than we attribute to ourselves.
Sure. Sure. The only, this is the serenity prayer, right? It's everything
Exactly.
that, I did a lot of stress management training and work in my earlier career. And, I, one of the things I remember that I would talk about is that the number one thing that people worry about, and I'd ask that question, they'd say money, they'd say, health, and they'd go a whole list. And I said, the number one thing is the things you can't control,
Mhm.
whatever that is. Your kid's out driving and they're in the car and you're worried. Of course you're worried, but worry is just all the things we can't control. So it sounds like you give people the tools, not just the talk,
Exactly. So, and
how
that's why,
to.
right, exactly. And that's why the microjoy method is so beautiful because it's entirely in your control. What you put on that list of 20 is in your
Yeah.
control. You're entitled to change that list anytime. In any particular moment, you can ask yourself, how do I feel? Right? So,
Yeah.
what do I want? How do I feel? What do I want?
Yeah.
And you put it on the list.
Yeah.
And I actually challenge each and every listener to do this exercise,
Yeah.
and I can even predict how it can go. 90% of cases, and that's my personal experience as well, is that you start putting things on the list and you stop at number three. I stopped at number three and I said, oh, I don't know anymore what makes me happy. I
Ah,
forgot. There's so many
interesting.
things that I'm doing for everything else, all those emails that I need to react to,
Hmm.
all those goals that I need to achieve, all those things that I need to complete. I literally forgot what it was that made me happy and made me to enjoy life. So it took me a couple of weeks to complete the list. But that
So
exercise
three
on
is what
its own.
most people get to. Is that what you just said?
Yes, pretty much. Yes, three
It's
to
so
five.
interesting because it goes with, in my world, in the world of understanding and listening, that, as Brene Brown's work shows, that most people have 3 to 5 words to describe their emotional world. That's where we
Mhm.
tap out, right?
Right.
So it sounds, because we're not used to, that makes me sad. I
Magic
really want
number.
to, yeah, well, it is. And it's also because we're not, and all of us aren't trained to go below to the next
Yeah.
layer. So
Mhm.
we hear such, we're used to maybe asking ourselves some basic questions, but not to take that time to go to 20, which requires us to peel the onion back further, doesn't it?
Right, exactly. So when we stop at this 3 or 5, what I
Yeah.
usually advise people, go back in time. Go back to when you were 16 years old. Go back to when you were 7 years old. Go back when you were 5 years old and you would just, grab a bottle and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is a mic and I'm a
Yeah.
singer
Yeah.
on the stage," right? So those are the true things. Those are the things that brought you joy before, so you might as well put them here and start
Yeah.
experimenting. But a lot of it's like shift that attention back to yourself. Take care of yourself how you take care of others. and give yourself permission to really prioritize your own state, because that
Yeah.
what will give you power to really sustain whatever changes come your way, whatever disruptions come your way.
And it doesn't have to be time consuming. It doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
It's like working out. We don't all have to go to the gym. We just have to start walking 5 minutes a day as a starting point. Get up from the chair, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, which is why I like the to-do list. I'm going to do this, by the way. I'm going to write the list of 20. Now,
Let
I
me
know what
know how it
number
goes.
one is hitting a ball. There is nothing more. If I could hit a ball for 24 hours, do I count that for my 20 things? Because if I could do that 20 times a day, it would be, I just know that there's something about that my whole world escapes and I just go into just a different zone. So it's just joy for me. Some people like meditating. That's my meditation. So, but I think I mean, it's just so important. Is this the primary work that you do with companies and organizations, or is this a piece of it? Tell us more.
Right. So the primary work is really Silicon Valley Innovation Playbook, right? So we help companies, organizations, teams, executives to tap into the Silicon Valley Innovation Playbook. And the reason for that is that we all know that Silicon Valley produces some of the most successful companies in the world.
Yeah.
They tend to be in the technology space. So sometimes people from different industries think that, oh, this is not relevant to us because we're not in tech.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that there is a lot that anybody, any company in any industry, anywhere in the world can learn from this playbook that Silicon Valley companies mastered over the years. So that's what we do in the academy, right? So we help to tap into this playbook. The way we do that is through immersion experiences. So people actually come here physically into Silicon Valley, and we put together programs for them where they talk to experts, they visit the companies, so they actually live that innovation culture here. They learn from others through the experience-based knowledge sharing on how to build that innovation culture, how to build the processes and operations that help you sustainably create innovations over and over again and compete on those innovations.
So how long does somebody come to do this work? Is this a week program, a half a year?
Most programs are custom, so
Okay.
they're for a group of people. So there is a variety. Some come from a day, some come for a week, some come for 2 weeks.
Okay.
We do have open enrollment programs. Those tend to be 5-day programs.
Wow. First of all, you can't read it in a book like it is.
Exactly.
So what's the thinking behind your design? You designed this, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So why did you design it this way?
Well, I think one of the key factors is really that innovation factor in technology, because things are happening so fast, right? Changes are happening so fast. The academia is not really catching up
Yeah.
with the pace of change, right? So it makes, especially on the executive level, it makes much more sense to see what's happening right away and really learn from people who are making these changes, who are actually designing these changes, learn from their vision, how they are envisioning the evolution and the growth of that particular technology and application of that technology. That when they share their own mistakes and winnings from implementing specific programs and specific processes. So it's really invaluable. It's not to say that the academic frameworks are not relevant anymore. They are.
Sure.
At some level, there's really a benefit much more from the immersion element of that.
Well, the academics is also sometimes the discipline of how we learn more than what we're learning. I had to take badminton in college, not as an elective, it wasn't my core subject, but some of it is so we can understand the different disciplines. And, the way technology is changing doesn't mean we're going to learn everything in a book. This real-time kind of evaluation is a self-awareness learning process that changes how you kind of manage mistakes and all those things in real time. So it's executives and people, they come and they have this immersion and they have this experience that helps them basically probably fast track as they go back to their companies. To take these processes into their businesses.
Yeah, so the insights that they get from here, a lot of the most probably the most prevalent use is really to have the input for a strategy
Yeah.
as they're developing it 3 to 5 years out. That's part of it. The second part is really getting in that innovation kind of mindset,
Yeah.
just to see the possibilities beyond of what you have in your current job, in your current environment. Just see, especially we include entrepreneurs and founders and
Yeah.
startups. See how startups work, how they break the rules, not
Yeah.
necessarily, not in a good way, right?
Sure.
So how
Sure.
they get outside of the box, the ambition of that startup mentality, the risks that are willing to take, how they treat failures, not as a failure, but really as a lessons to
Amen.
learn in the
Yeah.
corporate environment, right? So not necessarily in your personal life, but in the corporate environment, how to create the culture within the organization that would allow for these risks to be taken in a kind of
Yeah.
safe and controlled way. So
Because in
all those we call in
corporations, people
Silicon.
are afraid to make mistakes often, aren't they?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's a big. Obviously, that's a big downside to the innovation effort and the growth
Yeah.
effort of the organizations.
Well, it's kind of back to what you said about growing up where, human connection might have been missing a little bit. A lot of times, we're not really talking about the benefits of mistakes as we're growing up and learning from them, right? And
Right.
that socializes us to go into, I don't want to make mistakes, rather than these mistakes are going to actually serve me pretty well, even though they're very, very painful sometimes, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, nobody
Yeah.
sets up for failure, right? So we
No,
always set up hoping for success, but things go the way they go, and
it's
you don't know what
inevitable.
you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then might as well treat it as a lesson. But then there are
Yeah.
steps to treat it as a lesson, not as a failure,
Sure.
but as a lesson. You collect data, you pivot, you analyze, you see what
Mm.
worked, what didn't work, and you
This is the
try
playbook.
different ways. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So how did you come up with this idea to create this business that serves people? I mean, I know it came from your years of experience, but this in
Mm-hmm.
itself is an innovation to create this kind of immersive experience.
Well, I think this is my psychology background
Yeah. I
in a
hear you.
way, right? So
Yeah.
being in the high tech field, and I was in a really deep high tech field to start within the semiconductor industry and in the software
Oh,
enterprise industry. Yes. So at the end of the day, working with so many companies, big and small, what I realized that, and I think that a lot of high tech companies are realizing it now as well. At the
yeah.
end of the day, no matter how much you talk about technology and how advanced the technology that you offer
Yeah.
is, at the end of the day, everything is really goes back to people, how
Yeah.
people are going to adopt this technology, how they're going to implement this technology, how they're going to accept this technology, how they're going to apply this technology. And when we start talking about people, we start talking about psychology, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, the decisions that we're making is really based on the
The user.
structure
Yeah.
and laws, right?
Absolutely.
Of connection, a human connection and human
Yeah.
psyche, not of the laws of whatever it is, electrons exchanging
I know.
within
Well,
the
that's right.
computer board.
But if but if that's what you've been trained to do, you're not thinking about the other aspect, the human aspect, and then that's the miss. We need both, right? They marry.
Right,
It's like the left and the right brain. We
right.
need both to kind of be good at functioning. So, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
well, you are fascinating. I think it is truly, well, first of all, you're branching, you've taken this big playbook and now you're also taking this into the just such a human level to make sure that we're enjoying our lives, not just not just doing good work, right? Which is,
Right.
and so this this aspect of these micro joyful moments, I just think is just incredible. But I'm just kind of blown away by your innovation and what you've created for the companies and through your academy. So tell us how people can find you.
Yeah, so the best way is through our website, SV Executive Academy. You're always, my LinkedIn is there. I live at
Yeah.
Brace LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out and connect. And I'm happy to continue this discussion in each and every way.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll make sure we have that in the links so that people can find you and that they also can have you come to speak. Yes?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, great.
absolutely.
So, well, it's delightful to meet you. I love that you're marrying the best of, the technology with the people, because I think we need more of that, especially as we're getting more tech advanced, right? We really we
Right.
gotta teach this,
Exactly.
because that's
Exactly.
outpacing what we know humanly. And I think I'll get on my
More
soapbox.
important than ever. Yes.
Yeah, emotional intelligence is responsible for a lot of our success ratio, even with technical projects, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Exactly.
well,
Hmm.
thank you, Dr. Victoria Mensch, for being here on Shine a Light. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Christine.